The way we kind of see it is around then, we had you had the taper tantrum of summer of 2013. It was MSR became a very cool asset to hold, and starting with them, and then then AmeriHome, other groups coming in that didn't necessarily have AOT direct trade approvals set up. That really started the move to data-driven executions, and eventually was solidified, kind of completely by Wells Fargo making the move, which really took the whole market. Finally the whole market was there. So Mike, it seems to be accelerating. Kind of how granular is the bid tape execution right now, and where do you see it potentially going?
Well, it's, as you said, it's accelerating, and there's. It depends on, it's a whole wide variety of how granular all of our different models and the hundreds of others that are bidding are pricing it. But the reality is, if you're pricing in a granular fashion or not, from an investor standpoint, you're affected by it, because many of the large investors are already pretty far down the road, I'd say. There's a long way to go, I believe, because you have servicing aspects that needs to be more granular. I'll give an example. California, right? Pretty big state. California servicing value. There's probably nuances in California that we're not taking into account at this point that at some point I believe that will evolve. There's risk aspects. There's just pricing aspects. So there's really granular opportunities or more refined specific opportunities, I think, that all of us have to think about and is going to be incorporated. And if you don't incorporate it, my belief is that, so that's why we're always paying attention to what the market's doing to see, well, why are they doing that? Is it something we should be thinking about if we're not? We always pay attention to what we're winning and what we're locking, just to see if we're doing too much of any one thing. Just want to make sure our book looks strong. Because at the end of the day, whether we're doing it or our competition's doing it, we're affected by it. And so we see it all the way down to the rate sheet businesses and retail direct lenders that they may over-index in certain areas, and it's probably because you're not thinking in terms of more specificity around your pricing. So I think so the long answer, I think it has room to go, to be candid. But I think we're certainly much farther down the road today than we were maybe a year ago.
Yeah, in the state, the state servicing valuation to us seems amazing, and I know Mike is working on that. Some interesting stuff there. But a lot of us are going to be in Austin in next month, and when California guys go to Austin seems more Californian than a lot of towns in California. So the fact that it would have the same servicing value as towns in West Texas is probably, from your guys' standpoint, does seem kind of crazy. Greg, where do you see servicing valuation granularity going?
We've talked about it, and we're very granular now, and more will come just over time. Where we're really granular on the pricing side is to try to meet CRA and LMI needs. And so we've been utilizing bid tape in a variety of ways for that. A hint out there, we're going to be going down and looking at census tracts. We think there's definitely some niche areas we can play to help meet our bank's goals, and the census tract level may allow us to get those goals filled, and on the way. So we're going to look to get granular, and then obviously specified pools are crazy granular now with the pay-ups by loan size and all the variety of other pay-ups that we're seeing come through. So there's no stopping the granularity, and we'll just, hopefully the systems and pricing constructs can match as we go and as we need to keep getting more granular.
So, with respect to, and Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had one more comment. Is it's going to be interesting to see where all the rate sheet businesses go. Best efforts in our environment or the entire, broker, direct, wholesale businesses and retail businesses. I mean, the idea of a rate sheet, we talked about this. The idea of rate sheets, it seems that that's going to be something of the past at some point because of the granularity. You really can't put it on a rate sheet that's easily digestible. So that's something I think that we'll see evolve as well in the future.
So now that Mike's brought that up, I think we might need to rip up the script for a couple minutes and talk a little bit more about that, since I'm very interested. So what you're referring to there, Mike, is you've got your, your.
Yeah, I'm not like we don't have specific plans to do that at this time. I mean, it's in some ways, the market isn't ready for it, right? You could be constrained by pricing vendors, as an example. But it certainly is, as you get more granular, as Greg's talking about pricing to census tract. Well, if their census tract needs change all the time, how are they going to continue to update a rate sheet, right? That's really difficult because that's kind of impossible to kind of pass through, have your clients update it and put it into their pricing models. And so to me, the dynamic seems to be evolving, and it just seems like a natural evolution that's probably on our way at some point.
So since I've had conversations with some of your people about this, it's really, as I understand it, it really goes to the lenders to figure out how we can push this to the street, because one of the biggest issues is there's so many components that are going into this capital markets price. And so right now, if let's just say a FICO changes, right? You've got the rate sheet to go back and tell him or her that this is why the price is going down. A classic example is the sub 700 spec product, FICO spec product. If your FICO goes from 695 to 705 goes up, the price can get worse. And so what you're saying is it's hard to communicate that to the originating community.
It's the reality of I think of certain granular aspects to what we're trying to do, they change often. And so it's one thing to put it in your bulk model and to change that, right? We give you a bid on Monday, you give you a bid on Tuesday, the components could change, right, for all of us. And it's difficult as you pass that through in terms of rate sheets and announcements and how that changes. So it's just a different dynamic.
The borrower eventually, but we understand there's some operational hurdles there. So Amy and Giuseppe, I realize there are some kind of guardrails that you guys have to follow with regards to talking about what's coming down the pike. With regards to granularity though in spec products, do you guys have any comments as far as the asset-based pricing?
Well, I think suffice it to say that we're all trying to compete for business, and so that which we can pass through, that we can provide, we certainly will. Our volumes that we purchase through the cash desk and then subsequently securitize and command the marketplace allow us to pass those things that are there maybe periodically or they're consistently, and we at Freddie Mac are committed to doing so as we can.
And Phil, I just want to go back to some of the points that were made just now and earlier today about the granularity and what does that mean for mark to market, right? So as you kind of get to a black box type pricing, both on the asset and servicing side, what kind of obstacles does that present for mark to market? So I think one thing that we pride ourselves on is price certainty that we offer. It's very hard for a lender to mark to market without having a rate sheet of record. So I think one of the benefits of what we have in our specified pay-ups, we actually allow commitments of up to 90 days, and those pricing are live. They're not sent on a daily basis. They're live within PE whole loan. So I think that's probably a huge benefit. I think Fannie Mae as the benchmark. We need to provide that to the market because in a disconnected market, I think we can get into a little bit of trouble with that spot bid.
So Giuseppe brought up long-term locks, periods of 90 days. We have seen some pretty crazy things go on in the market with respect to roll costs, where you've got months like November paying more than October. Do you guys have any comments on how you guys would handle that in your pricing models?
Yeah, for us, it was a head scratcher the first time we started seeing that in some spot coupons, and our first inclination was, well, should we just give it a free roll? Then we thought, well, true value is the market. We want to be transparent to the market, so we passed through the value up. Now we had to manually do that because the system had never encountered that and didn't know how to kind of automatically do that. But yeah, if we see value higher on out months and you need to roll that commitment, obviously your motivation is to get loans funded and through quick to alleviate warehouse lines and get that going down the process. But for the loans that can't make it, we'll roll them out, and if the value's higher, you get a higher value with it.
Yeah, it's in a unique spot in the market, and I think there's been comments of like, why are spec values so strong? Well, maybe not today, but prior to the last couple of weeks. Why is it so strong? It's in part because the market finally got smart and stopped paying 107 levels for coupons that are out of the money, and so it's basically like the rally just didn't occur on these higher coupons, creating this flat coupon spread and then this flat, longer term lock period. And so, but then it created this additional value for the spec story. It's like, only if it's going to pay up, they're going to pay for a story. They're going to pay for something they think is actually going to stick around. So it's been an interesting dynamic these past 6 months in terms of something I don't recall seeing in the past. So yeah, a lot of changes.
One of the advantages is, with situations like this, where you have a short-term lock literally paying less than a long-term lock. I mean, that's a fundamental, if you think about it, almost a fundamental indictment as to what we've told you guys all. We've told you guys all that you close loans faster, you make more money. In certain coupons right now, that's actually false. It's not, the financial laws of physics don't hold that this should stay long term, but it is interesting. One of the advantages of technology is, the ability to automatically choose those longer periods. And when I was looking at, for instance, Freddie Rapid Commit, it automatically will give us those higher prices for the longer periods. Amy, aside from kind of just general, relationship management, what are some of the advantages that MCT would get, kind of MCT clients would get being partnered with MCT, being partnered with Freddie Mac?
Sure. Well, I think we opened the discussion with why are we partners anyway? We all perceive value there. Very specifically with my group, you do have someone who is a former secondary marketing manager, Kathy Stickelmeyer, who is your account executive covering MCT, who is also providing a liaison within the Freddie Mac sales organization, within our capital markets group. And so the benefit, I believe, there is that we understand, we can provide that translation where necessary. Account executives, the lender account executives, they are responsible for servicing aspects and QC and underwriting and so forth. So secondary marketing is not always their native language. And when you guys call up and talk to your account executive and use certain terms, it may not really stick. And so we're here as a partner internally within Freddie Mac to help you guys as sellers, and then likewise with MCT. So you want something that is a Freddie Mac component, and we work with MCT to ensure that we can help facilitate that where appropriate, of course.
And Giuseppe, kind of along those same lines in relationship, we're seeing a lot where we are seeing interest in your flow servicing buying program, SMP. Why was that introduced to the market? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and kind of where you see it going in the context of our customers who, one of the things we see very exciting about that, and again, Amy, I want you to talk about Freddie Release as well. When co-issue kind of became cool again, let's say whatever it was, 4 or 5 years ago, when servicing values weren't great, you had large minimums that needed to be hit. Now it doesn't seem to be the case on these flow executions.
Right, and I do think we saw a need to bring something out to the market outside of SET. I don't know how many people here are familiar with SET, but that's our servicing execution tool, which is a single loan execution. So for many of you who are doing large mandatory commitments, that solution just didn't work. So we introduced Servicing Marketplace, and the biggest difference is Servicing Marketplace is relationship-based. It's not a blind auction. You get to actually choose who you want to sell your servicing to. We're up to, I believe, 11 servicing buyers on the platform. That's up from 3 just short 18 months ago. So it's come a long way, and we've really seen in 2019 volume just take off. So, and I've heard some really, really great feedback here at the conference about the advantages of what you, the users, see in it. And some, just to highlight a few, Phil, as you mentioned, there's I think only about 4 or 5 of the 11 that actually have minimum volume requirements. So I think that's very attractive. A couple of them have standard PSA. So in terms of establishing that relationship, it's just a lot easier. And we've heard good feedback from lenders as well as the servicing buyers about how great of a tool it is to establish relationships and pick up clients via that avenue. And then other factors like all-in funding, which you're getting your funding for your servicing at the same time as your asset. So I think most servicers are doing like a monthly, so you don't have to wait 30 days. So what does that mean from a cash flow perspective? And I think MCT does a really good job of kind of bringing all those different attributes together and kind of displaying it. And hey, this execution is worth X amount of basis points, even though it might not be clear just by the execution that you're seeing. So it's been a great tool. I think we have a long way to go. There's a lot of neat things coming out just to make the process of boarding the loan that much easier, because we think if we get servicers on board and allow them to board loans easier than they're doing today, essentially you're putting less hours into every loan acquisition, and therefore you can present a better bid, and that essentially will help lenders. So we want to help the overall execution of the Fannie Mae MSR, and I think we're well on our way.
And Amy, on the Freddie release side, do you guys see the same kind of interest on the buy side for flow?
Right. Well, so we serve all kinds of lenders, lenders with a variety of needs. So similar to Fannie Mae, we have multiple servicing released programs. Many of you may be familiar with our Correspondent exchange. So that is the BB&T and US Bank and Wells Fargo and Chase. One way to execute. We also have the cash release exchange, which is our blind auction, as Giuseppe was mentioning, with 7 servicing buyers behind that, and allows you to have one way to execute with those 7. You can sell one loan or many loans, however you'd like to participate. And then finally also the co-issue program. And so one thing that I think we at Freddie Mac were able to discern is the pain that many of you guys, including myself, have incurred, which is the servicing transfer process. So last year we created a tool called FAST, Freddie Automated Servicing Transfer. Those of you who are selling on a cash released exchange basis now are probably using it. It is a tool that takes the documents and creates, for the benefit of both seller and the buyer, a standard data set, and as well as transfers the servicing documents over for a much faster and easier process. So the true FTE savings should be, I hope you guys are all trying to measure that and include it in your best execution. It's an operational expense that is borne after the sale, and so depending on how your organization looks at your financial reporting, it is an operational expense that you should give some value to it. Also on cash release exchange, you can be funded same day in many cases or within 24 hours. And finally, that FAST tool is on its way to being extended to co-issue as well. So we hope to have a couple of buyers in the FAST tool by the end of the year, and then the rest of the buyers in 2020.
Great. And so for Greg and Mike, I mean, you guys obviously being 2 of the biggest servicing buyers in the country, I'd love to get your thoughts. I think we would all love to get your thoughts on where you guys see co-issue. I know we talked when S&P was first coming out. Kind of, Greg, maybe you can start there, kind of where you see that. And
our focus has been on bifurcation with Freddie. and hopefully expanding that into Fannie. So bifurcation's high on the list, and it's been a great way, a great exchange of volume, and it makes the repurchase events go direct to you guys, so you don't have to work through us on that. So there's been some wins there, and we see that program gaining ground, month over month.
We're still really focused on a whole loan on that aspect, and we've looked at there's some of the aspects that Amy mentioned where it's whether it be on the agency side or the government side. There's been some comments that have been brought up from time to time related to speed or accuracy or the ease of business, and you have to have that in your model. And we encourage that because we believe that if we're stipping a loan, it's accurate, and there's a reason that we're stipping for that loan. And our turn times, even in this very, very large market, have been exceptional, and that is all credit to our team in Tampa and locally up in near Westlake Village. But that aspect of it, we encourage that. But we've also seen sometimes where it's like, hey, this is delivering to the agency and this is delivering to a whole loan. And I just encourage everyone to say, like, whole loan is not Wells, it's not Penny, it's many, and everybody has a different experience. So those should all be taken into account. And we feel very strongly about our turn times, and if we're stipping something, we have a lot of feedback loops to make sure that it's not an erroneous stip.
So in the context of turn times, I mean, and just pricing in general, Greg, I mean, we have volumes, obviously, at least for now, depending upon where rates go, at least for now, we're still at record kind of bulging pipeline volumes. How does that impact daily bidding and pricing? And I think a lot of our clients would be interested is there ever certain times in a day when you guys have just gotten too much volume, or maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, we during the day, as of now, if you put a bid in at 10 a.m. or a bid in at noon, and it's going to be the same economics in the bid. We're not intraday changing values and looking to tweak things throughout the day. Day over day, yeah, we will, but we have a big enough ops team, a big enough inventory that we can handle a few really big bulging days of inventory, and it may slow the process down a day or two when all that product delivers, but we can easily pull a little bit of a lever back on price day over day, and that even a couple bips, it's crazy how much it'll slow down production or speed up production when we need to. So we're going to be very prescriptive into the future about looking at volume that comes in day over day, but along with that, we're going to be a little more aggressive on the clients that have lower suspense rates. If we have to touch stuff less, there's a need for that. There's a desire for that, and we can use less ops resources to get that production through. So we're very mindful of suspense rates, and inherently, the faster your stuff funds, the faster we can execute on it, the more interest carry we get. That's going into your pricing model as it is. But we're looking to have even a little bit more of a lever there when you're in that camp of very good, clean production, because we don't want to touch it twice.
Amy, along those same lines, that price isn't necessarily, everything, given that, some aggregators might be backed up. What are some of the best practices, and I guess what are some of the top things that you see lenders maybe overlooking when taking a look at a retained versus release decision, or just the execution environment in general?
Well, so we've touched on a variety of different products and options, and so you guys as MCT clients, I hope you're leveraging all the tools that MCT affords you, and if you have questions, reaching out to your MCT experts to help you understand: am I monitoring all those inputs that I have into price correctly, or am I missing anything? Are there fixed costs for each type of execution, so whole loan versus agency that I should be considering, variable expenses as well. So work with your provider, of course, to help you make sure that you model them, but also that you review the results and that you guys talk about it internally. You could have a market dislocation that provides an incentive for you to execute a certain way. Is that temporary? If it is, then what are you going to do about it? Are you able to scale up those types of executions in your ops group? Are you prepared for that variable type of business? And so we, been around long enough. We know it's happened. It's happening now, perhaps with some folks. It's going to happen again. So how are you as an organization going to monitor those operational expenses? And as I mentioned before, bringing it into your execution analysis. But I would also say, and I'm going to take my Freddie hat off for a second, that from a secondary management standpoint, being nimble, being ready, being prepared for those different types of executions are important. Again, you guys have a tool here as MCT clients to be able to register those components, record them, reflect upon them, and make that determination. Is it worth it to execute with specific investors? Is it worth it to pursue a new investor relationship? Do I want to reduce my operational staff because of certain reasons, and therefore I'm going to change my business model to accommodate that change? Do I want to get ready to ramp up because I have some new business strategy, so I'm expanding or I'm acquiring? So I encourage you as your business model changes, as you grow, as you look towards the future, to also be incorporating into your analysis all the things that can come with those new changes, that new direction. We at Freddie also are providing a service on the seasoned or non-flow type of loans. So if you are an institution, a depository institution, maybe you're taking a look at also about how you could free up some of your capital by taking a portfolio of loans that you may want to monetize. You can take that money and put it in perhaps to your operations as well. So thinking strategically as well as operationally.
I'll add one quick comment as well. You really hit on the nail on the head on a lot of that. And one thing I stress every time I meet with clients is, do you understand everyone's really, really good at understanding execution day pricing. Well, what happens 2, 3, 4, 6, 10 days down the road when the price is finally settled? Do you understand that price difference, what it is by investor, how that impacts your warehouse costs? And sometimes, I'll ask somebody that has 13 takeouts, and when the answer is, you're all about the same, we're not. And I'm not saying we're always better, but you should really know each one and understand that in your upfront best X, so you know what happens when those loans ultimately fund and settle.
Particularly in a large market. I even take it a step further. It's not just that time period of when the loan is being purchased. It's also, we talk about the retain release conversation, and we hear some folks, we're going to opportunistically retain. Okay, well, where'd you get that mark? And how are you marking that servicing? Are you you're going to hold it for the short term, mid-term, long term? That valuation is totally different. And you may be getting a single recommendation from a particular servicing analyst. And so that's a strategy we see that it's not really trickled down into anything specific. It's a very general approach to something that, again, we're talking about granular pricing, yet there's a very general approach to this long-term potential asset. The other couple things is that, there's servicers like ourselves here. Our cost of servicing at this point is very, very low. I mean, are you going to really service for? I mean, it's pretty expensive. Delinquent servicing is no fun. You could have an insured loan. And then the other thing is, I've seen that strategies around that, servicing buyers don't like certain FICOs, or servicing buyers don't like certain strip sizes on governments. Well, we were just talking recently, a 3 1/4, the life of that loan versus a 4 1/4, quite different. And we've seen some strategies and some clients where they're just, hey, we're okay to retain this particular type of servicing. Okay, well, that's a lot of money you're putting into that individual loan, so the life of that loan is extremely important. So there's a lot of long-term, these are obviously very, very important decisions, but there's also that long-term strategy where we're seeing sort of kind of the blob mentality when you're dealing with very, very granular pricing at the front end. So,
And we don't bet on the rate direction.
Yeah.
We assume every loan we buy has a 50% chance that the market's going to go up on it and 50% chance it's going down. So we don't try to find a bottom. And we've been doing this a long time, and our servicing valuation crew is very good. We have a variety of PhDs in there, just quant everything. And we're not betting on which way this market's going. And so if you guys are starting to think, hey, we're getting near the bottom, time and time again, we hit that bottom, and all of a sudden we get another rally, and stuff starts running off as fast as you think. And if you've overvalued it, now you can't make up for what's ran off in the short term.
Well, you guys, took the question right out of my mouth there. So I was going to open that up to everybody because obviously all good points. And what are some of the room, kind of for improvement? I should say, Giuseppe, that you see that could be employed on a retain versus release decision.
So I just want to quickly just talk about, I think everyone made some really great points, but I also think, and I know sometimes, when a market that we saw late Q4 of last year, early Q1, it's really hard to leave money on the table. I think there's a lot of pressure to really squeeze every dime out of every loan. But I also think at the same time, there's a balancing act that, everyone has a responsibility to maintain a healthy long-term relationship with all their investors. Because I think, when you're selling, adversely to one of the investors, I think over the long term, that if you take one large investor kind of out of the mix, other investors start realizing that, hey, they might be picking up a little bit more from this one lender, and then that bid starts to fade because the competition lessens. So I think it's really, really, to all their points, excellent points, but I also think, the long-term relationship is really, really important. So that's something to consider. And then, just some of the things to consider in terms of, when you're making a decision of where to sell your loans. I think ease of execution now is a big one. I mean, there's all this talk about technology and what it's doing, and really we are trying to, lessen the burden of actually selling a loan. So I think that's a big one. Obviously, there are some things that are tangible that you can say, okay, this is, a certain fee. Yeah, you can calculate that. Funding time, you can go back and calculate that for them. But I think there's also some intangibles. The ease of execution is one. I also think you have to make sure that you're taking advantage of all possible products that are being offered to you. For instance, our day one certainty program. You might not be able to put a basis point value on that, but if you're getting rep and warrant relief and don't have to worry about this loan getting called back, what is that worth to you? So definitely all things that you consider, because when you go back, like as you said, you need to make be confident that you made the correct decision of where to sell that loan. So
I think that's a great point. Treating yourself as if you are an investor is critical. So as you choose these executions, retained, released, what are you keeping? Are you treating yourself like the investor requirements of your other external investors? That needs to be a part of the equation. Not that I will just take the leftovers or, gosh, somebody doesn't want that at the price I think they should want it. Being realistic and adhering to your policies, whether they're risk policies, lock policies. It's tempting in a market to say, oh well, okay, we're gonna make a bet, and in consulting, I saw some people who made some really strange bets, and it was outside their hedge policies, and they end up losing money, which was not part of their original pricing structure. So being consistent, being reflective, utilizing reporting and analytics to ensure that you are doing what you say you were purposed there to do, get that margin.
And those are all, extremely well taken points, from our perspective, because all of our technology, all of our initiatives are really trying to, get to that best price, and those are, great points. That's not always, truly an objective price. We try to take things into account, obviously, like file fees, sometimes purchase times. We have the love-hate factor that you guys can put into your best X's that a lot of you guys do. But those are all great points. And Ian, I know you wanted me to truncate it. Do I have a couple more minutes, or Yeah, okay. So we have to get this room ready for 5 different breakout sessions, and I guess they have 40 minutes to do it, so we'll give them a couple extra minutes. But on, just to start with Greg and Mike, bid tape AOT, we talked a lot about earlier. We're very happy with the innovation that you guys have done there. Maybe you can talk a little bit about, how it's working on your side. Number one, are you gonna, keep doing it, hopefully, and where you guys see it going?
Oh, we have an announcement to make.
Yeah.
No, we're doing quite a bit of it. I'd say I'm a little surprised that more haven't maybe gravitated to it. I thought it really, once it was out and kind of an accepted delivery form, and Wells came out first, and then the AmeriHome was there, we were there, and so I'm like, well, look, this is it's going to get big, it's going to get big fast. So
I'm surprised that it's only MCT clients doing it.
no, it's definitely more than MCT clients, but I would say there are many clients, ironically on the larger side, that have gone a little bit more slowly into it. In some cases, the belief is, hey, I can do better than screen, if you will, in terms of the pair off. I don't have this issue. I think that may, while it may be the case, there's others that just haven't moved because they didn't really want to change how they were doing things. And I think that's obviously fine, but at the same time, there's opportunities, there's nuances with the different programs that are out there that I think would really be helpful to many in terms of cleaning up their position, keeping, especially in this volatile space. You're having note rates all over the stack. It's a very wide band, and so you may have conflicting hedge positions in certain months, and these programs do a pretty good job, I think, combined of taking care of some of those headaches. And so I think that I'm a little surprised it hasn't evolved faster, but I think it continues to grow. I'd say, in terms of on our side, the investor side, I'd say one of the challenges that I think will continue to be there, although it's a little bit frustrating, is the clearing of trades. That is not an easy process. And as you add more and more broker dealers, you have more and more people you deal with, and so it's kind of in the dark ages in terms of that process. So maybe in some ways it helps us because it's a barrier to entry, because you have to have a great back office like we do. But at the same time, it's can be challenging, particularly when there's a trade issue that may come up. It's when you unwind that and have to fix it, it can be a little bit challenging. But it's been quite an evolution over the last 18 months or so.
Yeah, we're definitely staying in it. We want to see more usage there. It's a great benefit on the cost end of it, the bid-ask spread side. There is an education involved, and we in the early stages, especially when we said, hey, we have this program, and the big reply was, well, we don't do AOTs. Well, but you have trades against it, so we can make this happen, and we did in many cases. The big thing that to jump on what Mike said about the trade side, we were very flexible on what we take in. You can sell us note rates that'll go into a 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4 coupon, and you can fill it. If you have $2 million in total volume amongst 2, 3 coupons, you can give us a $2 million trade on a 3 coupon, and we'll make the math work. So we're very flexible in what we take. You can, if you have a 300,000, 300,000, 300,000 over across 3 coupons, you could round each of those up to 500, 500, 500, and we'll take it. We'll pair you out at 2. So you can use some of our space and our size to over-deliver on the trade end, and then save a little bid-ask spread if you're going to take the rest of your loans to a competitor. So we want to be very, very flexible. And if there's other things you see and think, hey, this could help us, let us know. Let MCT know, and we'll try to mix things in. But our goal is to make it extremely flexible, extremely user-friendly. I agree. The trade settlement side, there's some work to be done there. But overall, we want the program to be very flexible to meet your needs and keep you guys protected day in, day out.
Yeah, and that's a great point, being able to over-deliver and then, or I should say under-deliver over a sign and take the rest over to the cash windows. I think that probably takes us to where we need to stop. As expected, I got through about one third of the questions. I was I asked for 3 questions each, so I kind of feel bad about that. But no, I really appreciate everybody on the panel. And like I said, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys this. You know, they represent you know, an extremely large part of the market. And from the agency side, you know, there's a lot of you in the room that aren't yet selling to the agencies, but I can almost guarantee there's not one of you in the room that doesn't want to at some point be selling to both agencies. So I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you guys.